Alright, this is how to use the Activity 5.4, the Redlist tool, and how to complete this activity. The objectives here, you're going to learn how to use the IUCN Redlist and just kind of become familiar with some of the threatened species that are in our world. Alright, now you might be wondering who uses the Redlist, and this is an image of the Redlist right here. So who uses this? Even if you're not thinking of going into an environmental career someday, the Redlist is still an important tool for you to know about. So for instance, maybe if you're a construction manager and you're building a restaurant, you need to make sure that the animals and species and plants in the site that you're building are not protected, or maybe they are endangered and you need to research that. So the Redlist would be a tool that you use. Maybe you're a zookeeper and you want to know how the wild populations are doing for the animals that you have in captivity, or maybe you want to create signs to educate the public. If you're an artist and you want to do street art to inform the public, then you could also be using the Redlist to find species to inform your view or your art. Just this person is doing that. If you want to visualize geographic distributions of different animals. So for instance, the coronavirus came from bats, most likely. And if we can map the distribution of bats, then we might be able to predict where certain areas are that might be more prone to viruses. Okay, so that's an important thing. If you look at the pharmacy industry, they need to use this list to find medicine potential in plants and in other animals or species. Okay, so a lot of different people from a lot of different professions use the Redlist all over the world, and it's important for you to know how to use it. So that's going to be the purpose of this activity. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to navigate to the Redlist website. So you'll just click this link and that'll take you here. And here's the search bar up here. You're going to click Advanced to get the advanced search. All right, you're going to be using different search filters to narrow down your search and find a species that fit the criteria. Okay, so in the end here, right, so here's an example of what a slide would look like. Here I have the label endangered. This is for a European rabbit. And we don't know the number of individuals, but we do know that the population is decreasing, which is part of why it's endangered. And it's actually threatened by 2 different viruses. Okay, so how do you make a slide like this? Here's the template. On the side here, I have the criteria that I want you to use to find the particular species. So you need to find one in Animalia, so an animal. It needs to be endangered, and it needs to be in Europe. All right, depending on what slide you're in, you'll see different criteria that you need to use. All right, so let's go here and we're going to click on this search filter, taxonomy, and we're going to click Animalia. So we're going to find animals. Redlist category, it wants us to find endangered, so let's go find endangered here. And then the last thing it wanted is Europe. So let's scroll down to land regions, and I'm just going to select Europe here. All right, so 489 species that it covers. Let's go ahead and find just a random species and pick it. All right, so here we have the white-headed duck. You'll notice on the page, here's a citation, so whenever you're doing your Project Steward or anything else, you can just copy and paste that, because that's the nice citation that they already give you, so that's pretty nice. All right, so we have the common name here. That's the white-headed duck, so I can copy that. Now normally if I just Control-V, paste that, it'll just change the font and the color. If you want to keep the font and the color, you can do Control-Shift-V. Okay, Control-Shift-V, and that'll paste, or in Mac probably Command-Shift-V, and that'll do a white-headed duck. Okay, we want the species names, so Oxyria leucocephala. So that is Latin for whitehead. So I'll put that in there. I think that's also the same specific epithet as a bald eagle, now that I think about it. So they've both got the white head there. Okay, so we know that this is endangered, so I'm going to take this endangered sticker and stick it over there. So I got endangered. And number of mature individuals. So how many individuals of this white-headed duck do we have? About 5,300 to 8,700. All right, so that's not enough, or that's not a lot, but we're going to put that in there. So around that number, and we know that the population's decreasing. There's a lot of information on birds. So birds, there's more information on birds than any other animal inside of the red list. They tend to really keep up to date with those. So birds are usually pretty reliable, but there's lots of other species that they have too. We're going to go ahead and just copy this and paste that in there. You don't really need to worry about tagging it. It's all coming from the IUCN. Okay. So there's our little duck. All right, now we want to look at the threats. So what's a threat that this white-headed duck is facing? If I, well, here's a map, by the way. Notice it just shows you where it is extant. So basically where it's found, it's found here and nowhere else. So that's the extent region. You'll notice that it is possibly extinct in this particular region down here. Okay. So that's the map, and it inhabits wetlands. So we want to find the threats, and so what I can do is that when I scroll down here, you'll notice there's several different options. All of those are laid out down here, so I can find countries, population. So here in detail they talk about the population. Here they talk about where it lives and its ecology. Okay, even diet. Okay. And if I want to scroll down to threats, I'm going to find threats here. You could also just, oh, it's already got that there. Okay, so we'll just go down to threats and click on threats in detail. Okay, if you read this section, it'll talk about how climate change is causing droughts and possibly drying out many of the lakes. A lot of the breeding habitat has been drained, and so pollution and drainage is going to affect lakes, and that's going to affect the waters where they can be breeding. It's also hunted illegally. Okay, so those are all things causing it to be endangered. And so here I could put climate change and human-caused drainage are damaging the water sites where they breed. If I wanted to, I could also say illegal hunting is also damaging the population. So those are some of the threats that we have there. So in the end, I have this nice little slide here about the white-headed duck, and I've learned how to use the IUCN Red List. Here, for these ones, you can find different land regions and just follow the directions here for those different categories. So, for instance, for use and trade, when I'm searching, I'm going to be down here, okay, use and trade, and I'm going to select different things. If you finish a little bit earlier, you can move on to these bonus challenges here, okay?